morning. Woke up this morning with my mind. Come on, sing out. Stayed on spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on spirit. Hallelujah. 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 Good morning. Okay.
In the beautiful memory of who we are, I go within to that one which is the all in all, the I am that I am, the source, the substance, the essence, the creator, the upwelling life and love that we call God, other people call Allah, Yahweh, doesn't matter. Whatever it is called, it is the one that sustains and maintains each of us. It breathes me, it lives my life as I surrender to it. And I know that as this is so for me, it is so for all. I give thanks for knowing that there is within each of us a willing receptivity deep within that calls to that one, and it takes us back and says, welcome home. In this morning, what I accept and know for all of us as we come together in that recognition is that we come together to celebrate and honor our unity, our divinity, and our love. And in so doing, this service is blessed beyond measure with our hearts, our intention, our openness to that which sings and sings itself through each of us. I give thanks that we have Reverend Mary here to share with us her heart, her wisdom, her insight. I give thanks that each of us finds and hears something that expands our hearts, opens our minds, and allows us to walk out into this world greater than we have been before. I give thanks for the sharing of this so that our planet is blessed, uplifted, and nourished. In the recognition that this goodness is constant, ceaseless, flowing, I invite us each to open to it and feel that love which is unconditional. I accept and know that I am the adored creation of a divine parent. And so today, as we rest in this, I bless us all. This service is sacred, our time is holy, and all is done according to the best and highest good. Oh, how grateful I am. So much so that I can just let it go. It's all done. And I hand it over to that law, which has been simply waiting patiently to do what it always does, and says, yes. And so it is.
I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. Switching gears here. 2 pages. So many of you have heard this song. Please feel free to join in on the choruses. It's all prayed up. I was wallowing in my tears, paralyzed by my fears, feeling sorry for myself and feeling blue, oh so blue. When my sister called and asked me, was I willing to be free? I listened closely, this is what came through. It's time to get all prayed up, time to get all prayed up. The answers are inside me, Spirit always guides me. Get all prayed up, yes I am all prayed up, trusting in the power of my word. I read everything I could while letting go of those shoulds, learning kindness and self-love and finding peace of mind. I remember now to listen to that still small voice within. When I settle down, this is what I find. I choose to get all prayed up. I choose to get all prayed up, 'cause the answers are inside me. The Spirit always guides me. Getting all prayed up. Yes, I am all prayed up, and I'm trusting in the power of my word. Consciousness is everything. I can mope or I can sing. I'm choosing to enjoy today by praising God in every way. The answers are inside me. Spirit always guides me. Getting all prayed up. Yes, I am all prayed up, trusting in the power of my word. Pray for faith and peace, and open to release old fears and doubts and every false belief. So I open to the guidance of Spirit's loving presence. I'm letting go and feeling the relief. For I am all prayed up, yes I am all prayed up. The answers are inside me. Spirit always guides me. All prayed up, yes I am all prayed up, trusting in the power of my word. Ross and Amanda.
Yes, Posey, Ross, and Amanda. Thank you very much. That was great. All right. So, if you are with us for the very first time this morning, I want to let you know that I'm not Reverend Carol Huntley. I'm Reverend Mary Murray Shelton. Reverend Carol is leading a tour in France right now and will be back 2 weeks from today. So you'll see her then. But for those of you that are new here, our guests today, we have a present for you. And so you'll see members of our membership team up here at the front who would like to come and give these to you. And inside, what you'll find is information about us and also a little blue card that if you fill it out, we can put you on our email list, and we'll also give you a present in exchange for your email address. The membership table is back there, so you can turn it into them back there and ask any questions that you want, and you'll get one of these little books, A New Thought Primer, which talks about what we believe in easy to understand terms. And that's it. Then you'll be able to know what's going on, and we would be happy to have you here as much as you like. So who here is here for the first time this morning? Give us a wave. I made that whole speech and we have no, there we go. Yes, good. Anybody else? A brave person. Here's another one over here, right here next to you there. Okay, that's great. Wonderful. Let's give them a hand. Thank you for being with us this morning. We are a place that welcomes you so that wherever you are on your journey of faith, you're welcome here, and we're delighted you're with us. Now, also, this morning, before I begin, you all know Janet Ryan, who is one of our beloved practitioners here. Now, you'll notice that our altar this morning is blank. That wasn't intentional, but actually it fits all sorts of things today, because we know that today is a day where more will be revealed. So, more will be revealed. And it's also true for our dear Janet. Janet is at home under hospice care right now. She is asking for prayers for comfort and peace. And if you would like to leave a love note of some kind for her, this is the website where you do it. Now, she was reading these every day up until a few days ago. Now, some of her angel team is reading some of them to her from time to time. But she is surrounded by love. She's well taken care of. Her family is with her. We have a whole team of angels who are her good friends who are with her and taking their time with her. And on this website, in the journal section, Posey is posting regularly because she's one of the angel team. And so she's letting people know kind of what's happening on this journey. And so if you have more questions about that, she said it's okay for you to come to her and ask her questions. But if you'd like to leave a love note for Janet, please do it at this website address. And what you'll need to do is make an account for yourself, which is easy. It doesn't take any time. It's free. And then you can go to her page and then scroll down to where there's a button on the left side. It's a button, one of three, and it says well wishes. I think that's where it is. And you want to put your notes on well wishes, not on comments. But the journal part of it is where Posey is updating and putting notes from time to time. And so those notes will be available then to Janet's family afterwards. Everything that you've put there, pictures, notes, memories, whatever you like. And this is from Easter 2014 with Reverend Carol. So this is Janet with our senior minister, Reverend Carol Huntley. So we just send so much love to Janet. And it seems appropriate to me that our altar is open and ready for what will be revealed today, both in honor of her and in honor of our own process here. So please send her love and light and know all good for her on this next unfoldment. So we are part of the Centers for Spiritual Living as a larger organization. And this year we've been celebrating 100 years of Science of Mind, which is our teaching. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, published his first book 100 years ago. That was before it was ever a church or organized in any kind of way. And so each month, our centers have been putting attention on a particular focus or teaching of ours. And the one that we have this month is spiritual wisdom and how to follow it. Or one might even say how to listen to it, how to notice it, how to take it seriously, how to not discount it, all that sort of stuff. So, you know how the domino theory works? Well, we're talking about today creating a spiritual chain reaction. A spiritual chain reaction where what we put out multiplies itself and extends out from us as it goes. So it seemed like an appropriate time to share this story. One morning, an executive calls his assistant into his office and tells her, "I've decided we should go abroad for that conference next week. Can you go ahead and make all of our reservations?" So the assistant goes back to her desk, but before setting up the reservations, she telephones her husband to tell him, "The boss and I are going abroad for all of next week for that conference I told you about, so you'll have to look after yourself while I'm away." After they hang up, the husband quickly calls his girlfriend and tells her, "My wife is going out of town for all of next week. I'll take the week off. Let's spend it somewhere romantic together." The girlfriend is thrilled. She calls a little boy she's been tutoring and tells him, "I'm going to have to work out of town next week, so don't come for class. We'll pick up where we left off the week after that." Now the little fellow decides that this is the perfect time to call his grandpa. "Grandpa," the boy says, "I don't have class next week because my teacher is busy, so can we go to the lake together?" Now Grandpa, who happens to be the original executive in this tale, calls his assistant back in. "We're not going to the conference after all. I've decided to take the week off and spend it with my grandson instead." So the assistant calls her husband back to say she won't be going out of town after all. The husband quickly calls his girlfriend to cancel their plans. The girlfriend calls her young student back to let him know that her schedule has changed and she will be there for class after all, and she's expecting him. The little boy calls his grandfather to tell him the bad news, that he has class after all. So Grandpa calls the assistant in for the third time and says, "Never mind what I told you, and don't worry about canceling all our reservations. We're going after all." Sometimes we set something in motion without realizing that it does come back energetically to us. So not only does what we put out affect other people, it also affects us. So we are not separate and distinct from one another, even though it seems like we are. Language affects the way we perceive the world and other people. Even the phrase "other people," even the phrase "the world," the way that we speak English orders our life for us. And what it tells us is that things are separate and distinct from one another, and that we can weigh and measure their effects on each other if we do it properly, and we can figure that out, and then everything will be copacetic, or as they say in Canada, Bob's your uncle. So that just popped into my mind because I never could figure out what they were talking about at the beginning. I don't have an uncle named Bob. Anyway. For example, with our own sensory perception, we have a blind spot in each eye. We have it because the optic nerve, when it comes into the eyeball, goes through the retina. So right there where the retina is, where that optic nerve comes through, there's no image, it's blank. And there are ways, and I just figured out ways to use this in a class in a class in the future. There are ways to demonstrate your blind spot to yourself, and even how you fail to notice you have a blind spot because your brain fills in the hole. So you never know it's there unless you test it out and you can demonstrate that you have a blind spot in each eye. So we already know we're missing something. What else are we missing? So our theory, our idea, our perception that we're separate is usually workable to a certain degree, but it's not entirely accurate. For example, we are filled with bacteria and certain kinds of viruses that are not negative and harmful, but actually are good for us and in fact some ways keep us alive. This is an excerpt from Ode to Joy by Gerald Callahan, who's a doctor. Mitochondria, the little energy plants inside of all of our cells, were once free-living purple bacteria that long ago infected cells that would one day become human. And even 1 billion years later, inside of us, these bacteria still have their own DNA and chromosomes and divide whenever it pleases them. Some 59 pieces of human DNA came to us from mitochondria. The result of this fusion of genomes was an enormous gain in energy for evolving animals and a never-ending supply of food for the mitochondria. The energy mitochondria gave to us made possible unimaginable things like writing and speaking and breathing, things that would never have been possible without this symbiotic fusion. So we are benefiting from that. And then they go on to say, for more than 3 billion years, we've been learning to coexist with those that envelop us. I has many meanings, but none of them is as singular as we have imagined. And then the authors quote the book, Acquiring Genomes, A Theory of the Origin of Species, and those authors argue convincingly that change, radical evolutionary change, as evidenced by dramatic events, such as the separation of two species, occurs only through the joining together of two previously separate organisms and their DNA. That is, real change in any one of us occurs only through encounter with and absorption of other. Infection is our past and our future. Infection is a way of life, our only way of life. So this got me to thinking about consciousness and the recognition that what we do, what we think, the actions that we take have a rippling, bless you, a rippling outward effect so that it affects not only us where we are, but flows out to affect what is around us as well. So I'm thinking about infection, contagion, and influence. See, one ripple affects everything in its path. So it affects ultimately the whole as it moves outward. And Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, all of God is present at each and every point in God. There is no spot where God is not. And then he says, in Living the Science of Mind, did you ever notice the contagion of a happy person? One who has an enthusiastic joy in living. Their spirit permeates those around them, and the contagion of their personality influences their environment to such an extent that it finally changes it. But he says in How to Change Your Life, more than this, however, you need to remember that this joy, satisfaction, and sense of oneness must be translated into action in your relationships with others. So what happens with this is quantum energy tells us we're not separate from each other. Biology and physiology even tell us that we're not separate from each other. We have mirror neurons in our brains that help us have empathy with other people by watching what they're experiencing and being able to imagine what that would be like for us. And so we are connected to each other to such an extent that in this room, we're all breathing each other's molecules. So whatever I'm exhaling, people are taking in. Whatever you're exhaling, people around you are taking in. We're literally, physically, not the people we were when we walked into the building this morning. And when we go, we take parts of each other with us. So we have this contagion happening. Now, what happens with waves is very interesting, because you'll notice that what happens is that because this isn't done one by one, but all of us together, is that we interfere with one another. Have you noticed this? There is constructive interference and there is destructive interference. And actually, those terms are used in the wave interference theory. So wave interference is the phenomenon that occurs when two waves meet while traveling along the same medium. So it could be water, for example, okay? So two waves meet when they're traveling along the water. Now, if they hit in sync, where they're each going up at the same time as they overlap, or they're each going down, then you get a net effect, which means that the amplitude up will increase, or the amplitude down will increase. That's called positive interference, where it expands the reach of the two of them. And then, if they're in the opposite directions when they hit, if one is high and one is low, they cancel each other out to the degree that they're the same. So there is some canceling effect even if one is higher or lower than the other when they meet. Are you with me here so far? All right? So they cancel each other out. In other words, there's no wave action where they come over each other. However, and that's destructive interference, so their effect is canceled. However, interestingly, these meetings of the two waves, either the one that amplifies or the one that cancels out and neutralizes, the meetings of these two waves does not alter the individual waves or even deviate them from their path. Two waves will meet, produce a net resulting shape in a medium, and then continue on doing what they were doing before the interference. The two interfering waves do not have to have equal amplitudes in opposite directions for some degree of cancellation or amplification to occur. What's interesting to me is that they go right back to what they were doing before. So this is like when an idea is introduced to us that does not match our belief system or our race consciousness. It may temporarily affect us. It may temporarily neutralize our perspective. But if we're really attached to that point of view, as soon as that influence is gone, we go right back to what we were doing. Does this make sense? Yeah. All right? Now, what happens when we join together in some activity then, like in prayer, is that we increase each other's amplitude. If we're pointed in the same direction, we have the same intention, we have the same focus, then we coming together increases our effect, the amount of wave that we're creating to send it out. We may leave the group and go back to how we were before, but that increased wave continues to travel, even though we're not in it at that moment. Does this make sense? And at the same time, we can amplify each other's unhappiness, each other's depression or discouragement or hopelessness or despair or anger. And you know that if you go to a practitioner and you're in that place, that the practitioner's work is to balance that out in such a way that they either lift you back up or higher, or they neutralize where that is. But in order for that to continue, that neutralization, we can't just go back to what we were doing before. We have to instead use that prayer, use the homework that they give us, use the awareness that we're entering into in order to continue to be in that place. And we also have to decide what we're going to expose ourselves to, because we're all contagious all the time, right? Our consciousness is contagious. We're constantly infecting one another with our consciousness. We have to choose, what will we choose to be infected by or to receive and take in? What ideas, what energies, what thoughts, what beliefs, what feelings? What will amplify where we are in a good way? You know, sometimes getting angry or getting flustered actually turns out to be a good thing. So it's not necessarily at the bottom of the trough. Sometimes being sad can be a good thing. Grief can be appropriate. So what we want to be aware of here is that we are co-creators, and each one of us first of all, affects ourselves. We first affect ourselves. And then we affect everything. So in the book, The Heart's Code by Paul Pearsall, there was a foreword written by the PhD co-directors of the Human Energy Systems Laboratory at the University of Arizona. And they're talking about the Heart's Code. Paul Pearsall is a PhD scientist who had a heart transplant and noticed that things in his emotional life changed with that heart transplant, that there were things that in his personality he felt shifted because of the heart transplant. And so in the foreword to his book, these folks write, electrocardiograms are measured outside the body. In other words, they put it on your skin. They don't open you up and put it on your heart. They put it on your skin. The heart's biophysical energy and information travel through the body and reach the outside of the skin. And heart sounds also travel through the fluids and make their ways to the outside of the skin. So with a stethoscope, they hear our heartbeat. But what happens to all this measurable energy and information once it reaches the skin? Simple physics tells us that the energy and information leave the body and go out into space. It reaches our loved ones and our pets and our plants. It extends to the sky, and logically, the electromagnetic fields expand into the vacuum of space at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. So if we focus in our hearts, for example, think of Janet Ryan lovingly, and that vibration of love travels at 186,000 miles a second, how long do you think it takes to get to her? When we think of her in love and light, in peace, in ease, in comfort, how long do you think it takes for those thoughts to envelop her? No time at all. No time at all. So each one affects the all, but also the all affects each one of us. So whatever's happening in the collective is still affecting us. We're not immune to it. We do not create alone. What we create, what we believe, what we think about and affirm and do and know, yes, it affects us and it affects the all. But what the all is doing also affects us. And we have to decide how much of that we're going to catch, how much of that we're going to take in, and how much of it we are focused on neutralizing, for example. Each one affects each other one to some degree. So what I'm thinking and saying right now is not only affecting you in the room as the sound vibrations hit you, it's also affecting everybody out there in Corte, Madera. They don't know it, but it's happening. And on and on and on. So each affects each, and all also affects the totality. So everything that we're doing here on this planet, everything we're thinking and feeling and doing, everything that's high amplitude or low amplitude, everything that's been canceled out, all of it is affecting the universe, and whatever universes are beyond this one, and those that are out there are affecting us, whether we know it or not. Okay, let's come back to Earth then. So in this place, with all of this going on, I came across this quote by Mother Teresa, who said, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." And so what we want to be able to do actually is to become consciously contagious. To know that every ripple we start when we cast that stone is a kind word, or a smile, or a loving action, or thought, or prayer for somebody else. Not only can we choose how we respond to the whole, but we also can choose some, at least, of what we give it, of what we put into it, with our intention. Now, the creative law is not something that we can stop, or modify, or change. Ernest Holmes used to say there is a law in the universe for good, and you can use it. But I think what is equally true, or maybe more true, is that it uses us all the time. It doesn't take a vacation. We can't take a break and say, I need to think really negatively for a quarter of an hour here, so would you just step aside? But we can know that whatever we're putting in consciousness there is counterbalanced and maybe neutralized by other things we're thinking and doing to help cancel out the negativity of that. Does that make sense? Yes. So when we decide we're going to create many ripples, the question becomes, and if we're always being infected, what do we choose to expose ourselves to deliberately? And if we're always contagious, what ripples are we creating? What ripples do we want to send out into the whole? How do we want to affect the whole? And so I want to share a story with you about this. Carl was a quiet man. He didn't talk much. He would always greet you with a big smile and a firm handshake. Even after living in our neighborhood for over 50 years, no one could really say they knew him well. Before his retirement, he took the bus to work each morning. The lone sight of him walking down the street often worried us. He had a slight limp from a bullet wound he received in World War II. Watching him, we worried that although he'd survived World War II, he might not make it through our changing uptown neighborhood with its ever-increasing random violence, gangs, and drug activity. When he saw the flyer at our local church asking for volunteers for caring for the gardens behind the minister's residence, he responded in his characteristically unassuming manner. Without fanfare, he just signed up. He was well into his 87th year when the very thing we had always feared finally happened to him. He was just finishing his watering for the day when 3 gang members approached him. Ignoring their attempt to intimidate him, he simply asked, "Would you like a drink from the hose?" The tallest and toughest looking of the 3 said, "Yeah, sure," with a malevolent little smile. And as Carl offered the hose to him, the other 2 grabbed Carl's arm, throwing him down. As the hose snaked crazily over the ground, dousing everything in its way, Carl's assailants stole his retirement watch and his wallet and then fled. Carl tried to get himself up, but he had been thrown down on his bad leg. He lay there trying to gather himself as the minister came running to help him. Although the minister had witnessed the attack from his window, he couldn't get there fast enough to stop it. "Carl, are you okay? Are you hurt?" The minister kept asking as he helped Carl to his feet. Carl just passed a hand over his brow and sighed, shaking his head. "Just some punk kids. Hope they'll wise up someday." His wet clothes clung to his slight frame as he bent to pick up the hose. He adjusted the nozzle again, started to water. Confused and a little concerned, the minister asked, "Carl, what are you doing?" "I've got to finish my watering. It's been very dry lately," came the calm reply. Satisfying himself that Carl really was all right, the minister could only marvel. Carl was a man from a different time and place. A few weeks later, the 3 returned. Just as before, their threat was unchallenged. Carl again offered them a drink from his hose. This time, they didn't rob him. They wrenched the hose from his hand and drenched him head to foot in icy water. And when they had finished their humiliation of him, they sauntered off down the street, throwing catcalls and curses, falling over one another laughing at the hilarity of what they'd just done. Carl just watched them, and then he turned toward the warmth-giving sun, picked up his hose, and went on with his watering. The summer was quickly fading into fall. Carl was doing some tilling when he was startled by the sudden approach of someone behind him. He stumbled and fell into some evergreen branches. As he struggled to regain his footing, he turned to see the tall leader of his summer tormentors reaching down for him. He braced himself for the expected attack. "Don't worry, old man. I'm not going to hurt you this time." The young man spoke softly, still offering the tattooed and scarred hand to Carl. As he helped Carl get up, the man pulled a crumpled bag from his pocket and handed it to Carl. "What's this?" Carl asked. "It's your stuff," the man explained. "It's your stuff back, even the money in your wallet." "I don't understand," said Carl. "Why would you help me now?" The man shifted his feet, seeming embarrassed and ill at ease. I learned something from you, he said. I ran with that gang and hurt people like you. We picked you because you were old, and we knew we could do it. But every time we came and did something to you, instead of yelling at us and fighting back, you tried to give us a drink. You didn't hate us for hating you. You kept showing love against our hate. He stopped for a moment. I couldn't sleep after we stole your stuff, so here it is back. He paused for another awkward moment, not knowing what more there was to say. That bag's my way of saying, thanks for straightening me out, I guess. And with that, he walked off down the street. Carl looked down at the sack in his hands and gingerly opened it. He took out his retirement watch, put it back on his wrist. Opening his wallet, he checked for his wedding photo. He gazed for a moment at the young bride that still smiled back at him from all those years ago. Carl died one cold winter day after Christmas that year. Many people attended his funeral in spite of the weather. In particular, the minister noticed a tall young man he didn't know, sitting quietly in a distant corner of the church. The minister spoke of Carl's garden as a lesson in life. In a voice made thick with unshed tears, he said, "Do your best and make your garden as beautiful as you can. We will never forget Carl and his garden." The following spring, another flyer went up. It read, "Person needed to care for Carl's garden." The flyer went unnoticed by the busy parishioners until one day when a knock was heard at the minister's office door. And opening the door, the minister saw a pair of scarred and tattooed hands holding the flyer. "I believe this is my job if you'll have me," the young man said. The minister recognized him as the same young man who had returned the stolen watch and wallet to Carl, and he knew that Carl's kindness had turned this man's life around. As the minister handed him the keys to the garden shed, he said, "Yes, go take care of Carl's garden and honor him." The man went to work, and over the next several years, he tended the flowers and vegetables just as Carl had done. In that time, he went to college, got married, and became a prominent member of the community. He never forgot his promise to Carl's memory and kept the garden as beautiful as he thought Carl would have kept it. One day, he approached the new minister and told him that he couldn't care for the garden any longer. He explained with a shy and happy smile, "My wife just had a baby boy last night, and she's bringing him home on Saturday." "Well, congratulations," said the minister as he was handed the garden shed keys. "That's wonderful. What's the baby's name?" "Carl," he replied. Of course, Carl, in honor of the man whose ripples were so contagious that they neutralized, and not only that, but created new ripples in a life, because he continued to throw that stone every single time and let those ripples continue to affect that young man. So what I would say to you in conclusion today is, since you're already contagious, share the good stuff. Keep sending those ripples out. Keep sending them out. Keep sending them out. Let them interfere. Let them do their work in the world, because you never know how your ripples are going to affect somebody else and lift them back up to who they really are. Namaste. Oh, thanks, Elliot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. Every time I forget that so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it, 'cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. How does the mighty oak tree face the changes autumn brings? He doesn't worry if he'll grow new leaves when it is spring, let me be that trusting. Let me let go and know the buds are on their way, though I'm naked in the snow. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. Every time I forget that so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. How does the tiny robin feel when it's time to leave the nest? Well, she takes a giant leap of faith and lets nature do the rest. Oh, let me be that faithful. Let me dare to fly. And though my wings seem frail, I cannot fail. And there's a simple reason why. Sing it with me. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. Every time I forget that so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. There's a power in the universe, and it's greater than just me, and it works a million miracles when I let it be. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. Every time I forget that so, the universe will show it. There seems to be a plan that works, and there's no way I can blow it. 'Cause I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. Yes, I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. It's you.
Is this on? Yes, it's on. I need to know that I'm connected, that I come here for a connection, and I love the ripple. I love sending the ripples out in my life in unsuspecting ways to people, the smiles, the times we get to share. So I'd like to ask the ushers to come up. And if you'll take your gifts and just place it over your heart as we go through this special time where we give back to our source. And this community is about sharing, upping our giving and the ripples. So if you would go collect the offering, and we'll have a wonderful song.
You all know this, so please sing out. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything every little thing I need.
So I give thanks.
I give thanks.
All my blessings.
All my blessings. Everything every little thing I need. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks. I give thanks.
All my blessings.
For all my blessings. everything I need. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I ever need. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything, every little thing. Oh, every little thing I need.
And I'm remembering that I'm Gail Durkin, and I'm a practitioner of this community. I forgot to introduce myself, so let's say this offering blessing together. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who are here this morning. And I want to say thank you in advance to all the gentlemen who are doing the brunch this morning. Yay! Yay, yay, yay! We have a whole bunch of beautiful men who did beautiful food for us for the Mediterranean brunch, and I will tell you more about that in just a couple of minutes. So, I also want to say I'm very grateful for everybody who puts this place together and makes us look and sound good every Sunday. So I want to thank Jim Homey back there. I want to thank Rick Walt, making us sound good. I want to thank Tom, who's up here on streaming, and also doing the video. I want to thank Ceci for doing the slides this morning, and thank the practitioners who are over here. By the way, I don't know if you know, up here on their table, there is a purple sheet like this that explains on one side what the practitioners are and do, and on the other side, it gives you their contact information, all their names, all of our practitioners. So if you need prayer, you can always call one of our practitioners or contact them right here on Sunday. And here, they're available this morning for prayer following the service. So if you need prayer, come to the table, and they'll be able to help you with that. I also want to thank Posey, Ross, and Amanda for making beautiful music this morning. For our membership team, for the people back at the membership table, and for anybody that I forgot, because there's always somebody. I want to thank Gail, Reverend Katherine Saux, and David Selzer, because they were all involved this morning as well. All right. So that's a thank you. Now, immediately following the service today is the Men's Mediterranean Brunch. It's only $10. It's going to be fabulous. So we want you to come over here and line up and get food and have a wonderful time. If you love food, you also have another opportunity most of these Sundays, because our Sunday snack team is on hiatus for the summer. So we would love to have you just decide that you're happy to fill in at some point during the summer and bring snacks. And every week, I guess, is a surprise right now. I don't know if anybody's handling those. So, take it on yourself. Pick a Sunday. Bring wonderful stuff for us to munch on, and we will bless you, and you'll go straight to heaven. Not immediately, later. All right. I also want to invite the Leadership Council President, Pat Sandry, to come up for an announcement now.
Thank you, Mary. Well, the day has finally come. The town hall meeting is going to be after service today and after the brunch. So at the town hall meeting today, you'll be able to have all your questions answered by Reverend Mary, and then there'll be a time to voice your concerns. We will then have the vote. We'll be voting for candidating or direct select, and if candidating wins, that's finished. We've finished voting. If direct select wins, then we go on to vote whether we want Reverend Mary to be our new senior minister. Now, we are having 2 ballots for this, and the ballots and the sign-up for the ballots are back at the membership table. So you can see Katherine back there, and Suzanne. And yes, the results will be announced right after the voting, so stick around.
Thanks, Pat. And I do want to let you know, too, that Amanda and I are abstaining from voting because obviously we have a vested interest in what happens. So I'll be here for, when the brunch is more or less finished and we get ready to start the meeting, I'll be here for any questions anybody wants to ask me. Now, let me say, these are not about what's the meaning of life. This is like questions that really have to do with this, right? And then, when those questions are exhausted, we're going to leave, so that the discussion that you have with the Leadership Council about questions or concerns or anything like that is completely you guys on your own, with no overarching anybody watching you. You get to do your voting and everything yourselves together, because that seems like the best way to do it. Moving on, if you are someone whose birthday falls in the Cancer range right now, please, and you're a member of the church, you get a free spiritual checkup with one of our practitioners. This is where this comes in handy, this list with their phone numbers. And what we want you to do is fill out your form over here so that we know you're claiming one, and then we'll take it from there. So please make sure you've got that if you're a member with a birthday during this sign. Woman Spirit Rising is happening in September. You can talk to Lori Greer over here if you have questions about that. She's our Woman Spirit lady. And that's coming up, and it's at Rivers Bend Retreat Center. Registration is open. Be sure and sign up today for Reverend Carroll's 2 workshops that are coming up in July. These are workshops that were requested by members of the congregation. Conscious Endings, if you have trouble knowing how to end things, this is a good one. Or how to download a talk from Spirit. If you'd like to do more speaking in different circles that you're in, this is a way to find out a little bit more about that. And I'm going to call Pat back up again because you probably all know that we have this soiree coming up. Sue Ruda told me to let you know that they have all the money now for the soiree that they needed. And they're happy to receive more for the gift, but the soiree is covered, so everybody can come. Please do give your RSVPs, and Pat's going to say more about that right now.
The RSVPs, Maya, are you here? Oh, there's Maya. She wants to get the names of everybody who's attending. We need this for food and drinks. So please see Maya, okay? That's your job.
They need these RSVPs by July 7th so that they know how much stuff they need to have for everybody to eat, because they're going to have munchies and bubbly and good stuff. Reverend Carroll is retiring at the end of July, as most of you know, and so this party is for her. And although the party is not a secret, the gift is. So there's a box over here on the education table where you can make contributions for Carol's gift. And that one thing will be the big surprise for her that night. All right. So since I forgot to do inner work, I'm going to kind of do it now. And so practitioners, would you stand wherever you are, or if you're up for surrounding the room, go for it. Everybody in a stole this morning is one of our licensed practitioners. The ones who are on duty today for your prayer time will be over here at the table following the service. So you can get a prayer before lunch, during lunch. Well, hopefully before lunch. They need to eat too. So let's put our hands over our hearts and feel your heartbeat for a moment. Those ripples are keeping you alive that go out through your veins, your arteries, that go out, come back, go through the lungs, go out to the body. And we are the heartbeat of this world. So we do together right now send love to the world, to all those who need it most, whether they look like bad people or not, whether they look like suffering people or not. We send that out to everybody who could use a lift today. We send these ripples out together knowing that together they amplify their effect. And we're so grateful to know that, as always, Spirit guides our way. Amen. So I invite you to stand and join me for the affirmation and the closing song right now. I invite the highest, wait, I'll wait till you're assembled. Okay, ready? I invite the highest and best of life to influence, uplift, and embrace me. I know at every moment we are each creating abundant ripples in consciousness. I choose to contribute my highest thoughts and feelings to ripple forth and bless all of life. Okay. Everything I need
To know about what lies before me, everything that I need to know about what lies before me is available to me, is available to me through the mind of God within me. Everything that I need to know about what lies before me, everything that I need to know about what lies before me is available to me, is available to me through the mind of God within me, through the mind of God within me, through the mind of God within me.
Thank you for being here.
Nicely done. Right through everything. Everything, just beautifully.
You know, it's like I'm going, how the God did it.
Buck up and you did, you know? This is
I
wonderful.
get to do that with you.
Yes, well, let's do it again soon.